Hi, everybody. I'm Dina Dwyer-Owens, and I'm the brand ambassador. I think of myself as a head cheerleader for Dwyer Group, actually now Neighborly, a community of home service experts. And we actually are a franchise organization. I'm also the author of a book called Values, Inc. And today on Dov Baron's show, we're going to talk about how keeping your values front and center can change your world and actually our world. So stay tuned. It's going to be fun.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty interview series. I'm your host, Dov Baron, founder of Full Monty Leadership. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness so that you can reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your life, in your business, and your leadership impact. Today, we're going to be taking an insider look at the values your business was built on. How do you know whether they're still truly there, or if they've become little more than a plaque on the wall? Remember, you can chat about this episode or any episode of our show by going to our Facebook page, Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Podcast. You can go there, you can chat with our guests, with other listeners, and tell us what you got out of the show. If you're a new listener and new viewer, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in, we're about to go full Monty. Remember, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you tune into podcasts. We always need your help in staying relevant, so please get yourself over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. When you do so, go back to that Facebook page, Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Podcast, and tell us that you've done your subscription and that you've done a review. Maybe we'll give you a shout out right here on the show. Remember, you can also catch us on traditional radio stations across the United States every Monday and Thursday. You'll find us all the way from Georgia to Colorado. Just tune on in. Also look for us on Roku TV, where there's over 100,000 subscribers. And if you're a regular listener, big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners, with a potential of 2.5 to 4 million listeners for every show. We're honored and grateful to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. You can also find us on Google Home and Alexa by simply saying, play Dov Baron's podcast. Again, thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. All right, let's strip it down, dive right in. As a leader, whether you're a CEO, someone in the C-suite, a sales leader, entrepreneur, or leader in any capacity, you know that having a rock-solid set of values upon which you build your company is the backbone of lasting success. But how do you truly know if those values are still there when you reach the point where you've got 100 employees, 1,000 employees? What about when you reach $100 million? In business, or for that matter, $1 billion in business? Well, stay tuned, because our guest today on this episode is going to reveal exactly how you'll know the difference. Dina Dwyer-Owens. She is the brand ambassador of the Dwyer Group. But behind the fancy job titles, awards, TV appearances, and the $1.7 billion business that her company Service Brands do each year, Dina Dwyer-Owens equates her success to having and living by a proven code of values. In 2010, Dina served as the chair of the International Franchise Association in Washington, D.C., the world's largest advocacy group for franchise as a business format. In her first book, which was Live Rich, How to Build Success in Your Company and Your Life with Proven Code of Values, has connected with thousands of readers by offering a simple message that in a world of constant change, values can be ever present. In her latest book, Values, Inc., named as one of the top 10 business books by Forbes, Dina aims to help inspire more hope for the future by taking the spotlight and shining it into those doing the things that she loves to cheer about, living and leading with integrity. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Dina Dwyer-Owens. The crowd goes wild, darling.
Thank you, Dov. And right here from Waco, Texas. So proud to be with you today.
Thank you. So glad for you to have. I've been looking forward to this. You know this. We had some technical challenges, and now you're here, and I'm so glad we could make it happen. It really is. It's a joy and a pleasure to have you on. Now, aside from all the accolades I mentioned at the opening, you are, certified franchise executive with more than 35 years in the industry. Yeah, you started when you were 12.
You make me sound old, yeah.
I said you started when you were 12, right? 15 years as the CEO of the Dwyer Group. As you got to do something that very few CEOs or owners, leaders are willing to do in order to test whether their organization really can stand up to scrutiny, and you went undercover. For those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about that, because I'm going to share people with how they can find out more about it later, but I want you to tell us about it.
To be perfectly honest, I had to approach Studio Lambert, who was the production company that produced the Undercover Boss reality shows. A couple of my friends had been on, and I'm thinking, no, wait a second. If they can be an undercover boss, why can't I be an undercover boss? What a wonderful marketing opportunity. And when you want something like Dov, what do you got to do? You got to go get it, right? You got to go ask for it. They didn't know who Dwyer Group was. They knew some of our brands, Mr. Rooter, Mr. Appliance, Mr. Electric, but they didn't know who we were. So we knocked on the door, but before we knocked on the door, we actually did our homework. So in life, when you want something, go ask for it, but do your homework before you ask, be prepared. So what we learned by watching 2 previous seasons is that there were just a few bosses who even mentioned the word values in their entire 1-hour episodes. And that was like 36 episodes that had aired. We also went online and read all the threads. And what we learned is that the viewers said, we want more people of color, and we want more women as CEOs. So, I qualified as a woman, also a woman who happened to be running male-dominated businesses, as I served as the CEO at the time. So we reached out, told them about Dwyer, and that my mission for going undercover was to find out where the values really making it to the front lines. And we'll talk a lot about the values today, but it's up to our franchisees, now 3,300 franchisees, to train and indoctrinate their frontline team members, their employees, on leading and living the values. So we had a good idea that they were working because of our Net Promoter Score, and we can talk about that more if you'd like. But I really wanted to find out by experiencing it, was it really happening on the front lines as much as we hoped it was? And they came to Waco, they did their casting interview, and that was a lot of fun too. That's a whole nother story. And after the casting interview, CBS gave us the green light, and they were in Waco in 3 weeks, I think, and we actually began the filming. But it gave me a chance to meet with 4 of our, well, in 3 cases, they were frontline professionals, team members on behalf of the franchisees. And then one surprise, they had me meet with an actual franchisees, which I was not expecting. So it was an amazing experience, and my mission was accomplished. I did find out that our employees on the front line were, in fact, striving to lead with the values. Not perfect. I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect, but they certainly cared. So we'll just sort of sidebar a moment into that experience, because when you go undercover, you don't look like you. What was that? Just, what was that like? The makeup thing and all the rest of it? Because I'm going to put the YouTube link up, but when people go there, they're going to see somebody who does not look like this. Oh, what a mess. So I had a long brunette, kind of like a Raquel Welch type wig on, I guess. And I'm going to do technician type work. I have very long fingernails. I was wearing pearls. Of course, that's so the viewers would say, what is this woman thinking wearing pearls on these kind of jobs? I had makeup caked on that was 18-hour makeup. It didn't move, Dov. I mean, it did not move. And it was the hottest summer in Waco, Texas, the hottest summer in Houston, and nothing moved. I had to peel it off at the end of the day. So I didn't blue, very blue eyeshadow.
Oh my God.
You could call me something that I won't say on air, but it wouldn't have been a pretty name, right?
Oh my God. So you look like you were from Texas in the late 70s.
Bad, really bad.
The big hair and blue eyeshadow. That is fabulous.
So the viewers got a kick out of it.
Oh, I'm sure. So did you feel pretty certain that, because I think it's one of the things that I talk a lot about with my clients, with the people I work with is, I say, well, what's the company, my stuff is around value, around purpose. And I said, well, how do you know if your company's living the purpose? Oh, our people, I'm like, it isn't the thing on the wall. And I said, if you really want to find out, you've actually got to get somebody to talk to the person at the front line who is actually interacting with people. Did you feel pretty confident about that going in as this person, this 1970s big haired Texan, going into that you would find the values, or was there a point where you were nervous about it?
I did feel pretty confident, but I was nervous. So the reason I felt confident was because we're really careful who we award a franchise to. We don't let anybody become a franchisee at one of our Dwyer brands, because it's not just about the business they're running. Their reputation's at stake. Anybody who is in one of our franchise businesses affects the other franchisee in the neighboring territory, and frankly across the globe, because they're wearing our brand name. They're supposed to be delivering our brand promise. So we're very careful about who we allow in, and they are people who believe what we believe in our values. The difference is, Dov, is that we've put our beliefs in writing, and when they see those, they're like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I believe. So I felt pretty confident, but you never know. So I didn't know where I was going from one day to the next. I signed an agreement, signed my life away, basically saying I would not interfere in the process. I had no editing rights. So I'd get on the airplane and they would say, today we're going to Atlanta, Georgia. You're going to work with Wayne the plumber. He's going to teach you how to be a plumber. So I'm like, okay, first of all, I'm probably not going to be very good at that job. I will give it my best. But when I got in the van with Wayne, for example, the first thing Wayne did was give me the Code of Values card. And he said, my name was Faith Brown. My undercover name was Faith Brown. Perfect for a 70s Texas girl. And he said, you need to study these, because this is how we treat each other on the team, but this is how we treat our customers. So right off the bat, 2 of the 4 people I spent time with actually gave me the Code of Values. And they said, this is what you need to study. And I'll never forget this, Dov. After the show aired, a lot of reporters are calling just to, give me a hard time, those in the industry. And basically one reporter from a big air conditioning and heating magazine said, so Dina, did you have to kind of dumb down when you were doing some of those jobs and pretend like you didn't know what you were doing?
No.
Are you kidding? I was terrible at the jobs. Where I had to dumb down was when they started to talk to me about the values. I had to pretend like I knew nothing about the values.
Right.
But that was a lot of fun. But yes, I was nervous. At the same time, I had great faith that if we did run into something that was against our values, we had the values to help solve the problem. So that was the worst that could happen.
Yeah, because as I was saying, very often we like to think that the values or the purpose of a company is very real and it is. But one of the things I always say is, the challenge is you can't find out. We talk about this illusion called open door policy. And I always say, well, the problem with open door policy is nobody's coming through the door even if you take the door off. And they go, well, why? And they go, because your title is the door. Yeah. That's the problem. Your title is the door. And the title makes it not only closed, but locked. And so they go, well, how do you get over it? You can't go in with the title. Well, they go, how do you do that? This is one of the reasons I like that show a lot, is because, you are going to reveal to somebody you've got no clue. And so cool that guy, first thing he does is hand you the values card. I mean, like, you must have felt like, yeah, baby, killed it.
That's what I wanted to do. I'm in the van going, yes.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. That is phenomenal. That must have been great. So
it was fun.
Have values always been something for you? I mean, obviously they're inherent in the company, and you were the CEO for 15 years. You ran the franchise groups, but is values something that is been inbred in you, or is it something you came to?
It was really embedded in my life. I was raised by the founder of our company, Don Dwyer, who was a driven entrepreneur. The one thing he wanted to teach his 6 kids was a strong work ethic. And with that work ethic, the way he taught us was through his values. So he founded this company in 1981 with a very clear set of values. And you might think of them as more belief systems back then, Dov. He had things like loyalty adds meaning to our lives. And then one that I never forget, and he passed away in 1994, but I still hear it the voice in my mind every day when I come to the office is we must re-earn our positions every day in every way. So it's not about just celebrating the victories of the past. It's celebrating the victories of the past, learning from the mistakes, but doing something better today than you did yesterday. So when he died of a sudden heart attack at the age of 60, a very young man,
Wow.
just took the company public in 1993. So we're talking a year later, the founder of this company dies. Our greatest fear as a leadership team was, how do we keep this culture special? He's not here anymore to hold us accountable to those beliefs that he indoctrinated in us, from kids all the way to all the team members that we had and the franchisees at the time. So we knew as a leadership team, we had to take those original values and operationalize them. So we, in fact, had a set of values, you might call them standards, where we could hold ourselves accountable, but also hold one another. We didn't have to rely on, Don Dwyer or any particular person to tell us when we were doing a good job or not a good job. It's about holding ourselves accountable and then being brave enough to hold each other accountable. And kind of a fun story, when we created those operationalized values, the existing employees, about 125 employees back in 1996, knew nothing about them. So we said, we think we have the solution to keeping the culture special. Here's the operationalized values that we'd like to test. So we gamified them. We were kind of ahead of our time. We gamified the values back in 96, and we asked the employees to study the values. And anytime they caught a leadership team member violating a value, we wanted their feedback. Kind of silly, but we said, we want you to beep us. So if you're walking down the hall and you hear an executive use profanity, for example, one of our values is to speak calmly and respectfully without profanity or sarcasm. We want you to beep us. So for 90 days, Dov, could have been depressing, but instead we thought, what an opportunity. We were beeped right and left. The employees studied those values. They had the courage to beep us right and left because we invited them. There were only 6 on the leadership team at the time, and they were so good to not hold back. We didn't crawl under the table, though. When we met back up with them after that 90 days, we said, what do you think? They said, we love it, but there's one value missing. And they added one of the hardest values we have today. Since then, we've created a system around those values. We can talk about that in a minute, so that they're front and center in our business every single day. So yes, I grew up knowing about values and the importance of values, but it was at the big turning point in our company's history that we had to take what our founder created and make them even better.
Yeah, because you've talked about a couple of things there. I mean, you've talked about succession, not just of leadership, but of values. You've talked about values becoming systemized and applicable, and those two things to me go so much together, because very often a founder starts a company, that founder has a set of values, maybe even has a purpose, and number one, founders are famous or infamously poor at passing on and doing succession, handing off. And when they do, they don't usually have a system. They are the system.
Right.
So very often the values die with them because there is no systemization of those values, because, well, that was Fred, or that was Susan, or that was whoever it was. And, so talk to us about that succession, because it's not just a succession of power, and it was a sudden one, you said, not just a succession of power, but a succession of values, because so many of our listeners, our viewers, are in family businesses where succession is a struggle, to say the least. 80% of family succession fails in the third generation, and a lot of that has to do with values and purpose and those kinds of things. So talk to us about, was that in place before he passed or when he passed?
What he was very good at doing was indoctrinate us again in the values, but also in his mission. So his mission was to teach his principles and systems of both personal and business success, so that all people he touched live happier, more successful lives. And we heard that over and over and over again. And it's how he lived. I mean, he came to this office so early in the morning and he left so late at night because he cared so much about touching the people's lives, helping them fulfill their potential, both personally as well as in the franchise business. So we all bled Don Dwyer's mission statement because we believed it, right? We really believed it. And then the values, again, he held us accountable to. He did not have the next iteration of the values. That's something that we had to take, because we knew this, if we didn't systematize those values, they would die. And we couldn't risk that because he had worked so hard to build this company at the point that he died in 1994 that we would have just slipped backwards. So we knew as a leadership team, and we hired outside help. So sometimes as leaders, we have to be courageous enough to say, we don't have all the answers. Let's go out and get some help. I mean, you do this kind of work. You help people be better, Dov, and we needed outside help. So we reached out. It took us about a year, frankly. It took us about a year to put together the operationalized code of values. And as a franchise organization, what we do is we take what's most important in business. We create systems around what's most important in business so that those systems can be replicated so others can find the same success. So we knew if we didn't systematize the values, we'd be in the same shape that most organizations are. They spend all this time and money on strategic planning, right? Identify vision, mission, values. They get back to the office. What do? They put it up on the wall or they put it on the website, but they don't really execute.
Then it's Monday. We get busy.
They get busy, right? And it gets tucked away until the next strategic planning session. They go, oh, we got to start all over. And he goes, oh, those didn't work. Well, why didn't they work? Because nobody owned them. Nobody took responsibility, created a system around them, and executed. So the greatest thing we did after we got the buy-in of the employees is we said, let's create a simple system. Anytime we have a meeting of 3 or more of our employees, we had not even introduced it to our franchisees yet. We had no right to ask our franchise to do something that we had not yet done ourselves. Absolutely. So we invited the employees and we said, anytime there's a meeting of 3 or more, we're going to slow down. We're going to take that deep breath. And we're going to review the values at the beginning of the meeting. It takes a few minutes, Dov, and that's it. Sometimes we review all 15 under the categories of respect, integrity, customer focus, and having fun. Sometimes we'll take one that we've gotten feedback that we're not doing so good at, or maybe we'll highlight a team member in the room and say, look, we've gotten amazing feedback from one of our customers. Let's give them kudos for really living the values. But it's top of the mind every single meeting, 3 or more of us.
So is that the system? Is just to make sure that every meeting reviews at least one of those values?
It's simple. Don't make it hard. It's a simple system, but then we have to measure our performance. You talked about that a minute ago. It's critical that we measure our performance. I went undercover to find out were they working on the front lines, and yes, they were. But internally, another way that we measure is we actually count it as part of our performance review. Our employees are actually rating their supervisors, and they're rated on their commitment to live the values. We survey our franchisees, Dot, every 6 months. We may only put 3 or 4 code of values specific questions into that survey, so we don't drive them crazy with constantly asking them, but 3 or 4 code of values questions. We get their feedback. We find out which one we're not doing the best, and how do we make a commitment to get better at that one, then resurvey them on that one next time around. It's constant. It's never ending. I could talk about these all day long, but if we're not measuring our performance, I could be lying to myself.
Mm-hmm. You know, I love what you're doing because obviously you guys are incredibly successful organization. You know, you're doing gigantic business, you know, and at the same time, you've boiled it down to, you know, you're almost $2 billion in business. So clearly, you know, the business system stuff. But you've boiled it down to what really matters is this, and I always think it's such a terrible title, this soft skill, which is values, which for me, I actually use the byline and I say the concrete soft skills, because it's something that appears soft, but it's what absolutely everything is built on. And I just love that you've gone to that, and that, you know, you are you as in the Dwyer Group are the the living example of that. Because look how massive you are. You're all over the world too, right?
We are. Yeah, we have 3,300 franchisees. So think about that, 33 small business owners who trusted in us and believed in our values, that now they're branded one of our brands. You know, this is 21 franchise businesses, basically 14 service verticals. And something we just did recently, Dov, that I think we sent you the press release late last week because it just went out, is we just changed our name from Dwyer Group to Neighborly, because you know what? Our customer said that's who you are. So the experience that the customer's having at the end user level, when asked, we did a huge focus group about a year and a half ago, and we said, how would you describe the experience you're having with our franchisees? They said friendly, helpful, courteous, neighborly. So now we're Neighborly, a community of home service experts. And the biggest fear, we just had a big, it's a reunion, but most people call it a convention. We just got back from our big reunion in Dallas. We have 2,100 people there. And we announced the name change because we said, this is who we are. as much as we love the Dwyer Group name, and it's, especially for me, kind of hard to say, we're going to replace the name of my father, there's a lot going on, but at the end of the day, it's what's right for the business. It's what's right for the franchisees. It's what's right for the customer. But the franchisee's biggest fear was, we get the name change, but we're not going to change our values, are we? Absolutely not going to change our values, because you know what? That's why we are where we are today. That's why the customers are saying we're neighborly, is because the values are shining brightly through our franchisees and their frontline team members.
Do you know what I find fascinating about it? I'll tell you what I find most fascinating about it, that I think is really important and so often missed. You are this massive international organization. And as a massive international organization, the last thing we would say about a massive international organization is neighborly, because we think of them as big corporate America who are just gobbling up and really don't give a crap about anybody, including their own people. And certainly, your customers are like, well, you just have to deal with us because we own it, whatever it is. And because of the values, you've managed to keep this small community business mentality, which, and people see that. I mean, this is your surveys. And for me, that is like one of the things when we had the first conversation, I went, what I really love about this is the it's like, it's a complete, like, hold on a minute. You're a multi-billion-dollar international company with a small company mom pop feel. That is amazing. And that's because of the values, right?
Absolutely. And in fact, I may have mentioned this to you on a previous call, but couldn't have gotten a better compliment. I was having breakfast one Saturday morning. I actually meet up with a group of employees and some of their family members and friends. Anybody who wants to come is invited, and we run in the park or hike, and then we go have breakfast. So it's really a breakfast club, not a running club, if we want to be really honest about it. But I'm having breakfast, and one of our associates, who wasn't part of our group, she was out with her husband and two young kids, comes up to me. She says, "Can I tell you something? I love this company, and I love the values, and I love that it's a big company with a small company feeling. It's got a family feeling to it." And Dov, you have to make these decisions as business leaders. And when people told us when we were less than a billion in system-wide sales, they said, you know what, it's going to be too hard. You guys can't keep this up. You can't keep the values front and center in your business. As you get to $1 billion and $1.5 billion and $2 billion, it's not going to work. Well, like you probably, it's like, oh yeah, just challenge us. Let us show you.
Exactly.
Yeah, the key to the success is to not ever get lazy about who we hire and who we award franchises to. So every interview, we talk about the core values. Every franchisee that we're interviewing as a potential future franchisee, we talk about the values. And if we're not in alignment, then we're not meant for each other. And that's okay, because there's plenty of other places they can go, and there's plenty of other people that do belong as part of this franchise family. So it's being very intentional about who we invite in. And our CEO, Mike Bidwell, and our leadership team, all the way down to the gal answering the phone, they believe so much in these values that they're not going to let anybody else get in the way. And if somebody's not playing by the values, they will hold the other parties responsible. And you know what happens? People self-select out, Dov. If we end up not being right for them and they're not right for us, it's rare that we have to terminate anybody. And it's a terrible thing when you have to do that, but it's necessary sometimes. But most people self-select out when they realize they're not kidding about these values. They are not kidding. They'll self-select out if they don't want to follow them.
It's one of the things that when we go in, we're working with an executive team around purpose. And I'll say, you should know something. And they go, what? I said, I'm here to talk about fierce loyalty and finding your purpose so you can build loyalty. And they go, yeah. And I said, well, here's the news. And they go, what? I said, you're going to lose a couple of people. And they go, what do you mean? If you really live your purpose, you are going to, because purpose is a magnet. On one side, it attracts, and on the other side, it repels, and it should. That's what you want. And that's the truth with values too. If you're going to work in a company and the values don't match, you can kind of suck it up for a little while.
But not for long.
Not for long. Then it's going to not feel right for you, and you're just going to have to go away. And that's okay for both. I mean, I just love that you guys hold to that. That's so awesome. When one would hope that most companies have done at least some basic values work, and I say one would hope. Yet so few of them, in my opinion, live by them. Because by my assessment, they've never really dug into what their true values actually are. If you were going to guide a startup, how would you recommend that they start the process of their values elicitation?
Yeah. The first thing is I would send them to my website, Dina-Dwyer-Owens.com, and I have a free Create Your Culture workbook. So aside from the Values Inc. book, which you're kind enough to mention, aside from the book, I've got a free download of Create Your Culture. And it starts with the founder, whoever's founding this company, and maybe there's a couple of partners, maybe there's even 1 or 2 employees already, is sit down and do this simple exercise that I've got in that workbook that basically helps you get clarity about what's important to us. And then come together and make sure there's alignment in what everybody's saying is important to them, and then narrow it down. You know, you can't have 2,000 values. You've got to get clarity about what are the core values. But then they've got to put accountability statements to those values, Dob. I think this is where, so many companies fail. They might have the values and, it's on the wall: honesty, integrity, customer service. Great. But what do you mean by that? What do you mean by respect? And that's why we've taken our values to the next level. So we have respect as one of our values, but below that we have, I call them values still, but they're really accountability statements. Things like listening with the intent to understand what's being said and acknowledging that what is said is important to the speaker, responding in a timely fashion, speaking calmly, respectfully, without profanity or sarcasm, which is critical in our businesses, right? You can't be in the customer's home and using profanity because they'll never have you back. So you got to get clarity about what are the behaviors you expect when you say you want to have an honest culture, you want to have a culture full of integrity. What does that mean? So you're on the same page.
Yeah, I think that so often, again, values, purpose, mission statement, all those things, they so often become a plaque on the wall. When we do our work, one of the things I'm constantly saying is, understand that whatever it is you write, innovation, integrity, customer service, respect, a purpose statement, a mission statement, everything has a subjective meaning. And you have to elicit what that subjective meaning is to the people in your group without telling them first. You have to find out what it is to them and find out if there's an alignment. If you say, well, honesty means blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, then I'll nod my head and go, yeah, because I want to work here. I want a job. I want to pay my bills. But if I'm misaligned with that, then we've all wasted our time and our money and our energy and our resources. And it's so important for us to actually take, and this is the thing that I like, is that you encourage your people to take the time. And I think that so often in business, we want to run ahead and we miss these, for me, what are foundations. If you don't have the foundations, so we say, okay, well, here's the purpose. Here's the manifesto. Now, we talk about non-negotiable values. What are the non-negotiable values? And the reason we put non-negotiable in is for a simple reason, is because it is negotiable in my head until we go, oh, no, that's what it is. 99 cents is always 99 cents. Yeah, but what about when there's a deal? Then it's not 99 cents. Right? So it's like, and getting that, and you and I talked about this, and I think it's really important for everybody to get when we talk about values. And this is why I like that it's so upfront with you guys and what it is you're doing with all of your franchises is this. And I really believe it's the reason you got the neighborly piece is because you and I talked about this previously. Value is values-based. If I don't value it, it doesn't have any value to me. I don't give a poop what you think it is. I don't care how special you, whoever you might be, think it is. If I don't value it, it doesn't matter. You want to offer me this diamond and it's worth $2 million and you're going to give it me for $500,000. I don't care about diamonds. Right. It's not worth anything to me. Not at all. In fact, I'd much rather have a cubic zirconia because no people were tortured in the process of me getting it. I'm okay with it, right? So, but to somebody who loves diamonds, it's worth it. So it's value is values based. And what I love about you putting out those values, including, and this is what's important, including the accountability pieces, what we call the consequences around it, is that people then get to say, that really matters to me, and you can't BS about it.
And, we, with our franchisees with Neighborly, so Neighborly now is this home service platform, and it's one of a kind because every service provider that we're recommending to a consumer in their neighborhood has been awarded a franchise from us. So we know they belong, but they have to pass the test every day, Dov, because the reviews are real-time reviews right on getneighborly.com. And so we do Net Promoter Score. Net Promoter Score is the ultimate question. If the listeners or viewers don't know this, it's that one question: how likely are you to refer us to a friend or family member? We all want promoters. We want people to promote and refer our businesses. So if you think about an Amazon or an Apple or even a Southwest Airlines, their average Net Promoter Score is usually in the high 60s. Our franchisees' average Net Promoter Score, Dov, is 73.
Wow.
We're in the service business. People are paying to get things fixed. We don't like to spend money on getting things fixed, right? We like to buy new things that make things fancier and prettier. But this is what our customers are saying about our franchisees and the service that their teams are providing. So we know when they're living the values, when their Net Promoter Scores are high. If their Net Promoter Scores begin to fail, guess what? They don't get to be part of getneighborly.com. Until you get your score back up, you don't get the benefit of cross customers amongst our brands because it's not right for the customer. It's got to be right for the customer. So this is a tool, the measurement tool on the front end is Net Promoter.
Wow, that is incredibly high.
Powerful. Yeah.
I don't know that I've heard of a large company like that it's so high.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we're proud of that, but it's still not good enough. We're always
well, of course, you always want to lift it up. Right. Of your values, into this 15, right? Of the values, what is the hardest value to stay true to? Particularly for me, I think values are hardest to stick to. I believe when things are fantastic, they're so good, it's like we don't need to bother with that anymore. Ain't no big deal. Or when they're in the toilet, So those are the two places that it's hardest. What would you say is the hardest single value to stay true to?
It's hard to pick just one, and it's
I'm sure
to ask because even at a board meeting, we'll actually kick off a board meeting at the beginning of a new year, and we'll say, which value do each of us want to work on? Which one are we going to make a commitment to work on? And it seems like, and I've got an opportunity for improvement here, is listening with the intent to understand what is being said and acknowledging that what is said is important to the speaker. I have a tendency to listen with the intent to respond. That's not fair to the speaker, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one. And I have to just give you two more because the truth is I've got a few I could work on. One is everyone has the right to their own perspective. So one of our values is that look at it from the other person's point of view. Well, sometimes, doggone it, I don't want to listen to their point of view, right? And it's about opening up instead and saying, help me understand why you think the way that you do, and really trying to appreciate it from somebody else's point of view. And then the third one was the one that the employees added. I said we played that beep game for 90 days. Came back, asked the team what they thought, they loved it, but one value was missing. And it's never saying anything about anyone that you would not say to him or her. Ouch. That's a hard one. So that's another one that I'm challenged by. I go to confession often, and that's probably one of the main reasons I go to confession is because I get caught up in saying things that I shouldn't be saying about others. It's not that bad, but it's bad enough that I truthfully, do have to apologize to people sometimes because I said something that I had not yet said to them, but maybe was, making a little comment about it with somebody else who couldn't fix the problem.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things it's on the human psychology side of that is that, none of us, let's say none, but very few of us really genuinely enjoy conflict. I mean, I actually enjoy healthy conflict. I hate conflict, right. But I like healthy conflict. And when we get confronted with a conflict, it's easier to go triangulate and talk to somebody else about it and who will tell us how right we are. Because that's really what we're looking for is validation. They're the idiot, right? Oh, yeah, you're brilliant. Okay, good.
That's what I thought.
That's what I thought. Thank you. I've cleared that up. Good. So,
it's so true.
It is. Right? It's part of the human condition. And so actually shutting up and being, see, this is one of the things that we talk about in our cultural work around purpose is they need to learn healthy conflict resolution. What are the skills of that? We call it courageous conversation. What is the skills and strategies to learn around courageous conversation so that you remove triangulation? And we all do it. You know, it's a form of gossip. And you're right, it's a freaking discipline. It is a huge discipline to not say these things. But you know, my wife is the one who taught it to me. She said, my wife, years ago, I mean, we've been married 20 years this year. We passed our 20th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And one of the things she had said to me was, I will never speak about you behind your back. And I would ask that you never do the same about me. She said, unless you're with a therapist or I'm with a therapist, otherwise we don't do that. We speak to each other. And I was like, well, what if you want to speak to, because I don't have a problem with you speaking to a confidant, a friend that you trust. Mm-hmm. And she said, I will never talk about you in that way. And I was like, wow, really? And
no wonder why you're married 20 years. Yeah.
It stopped me. Right. And it became a discipline. So I would not complain about, you know, oh, my wife did this. So I would not do it. It was very simple. If it had to be talked about, it had to be talked about to her, or it's my shit. I got to deal with it. Mm-hmm. Right? That's a tough one for people to swallow, but that is it. Because most of the time, it's usually your own stuff. And so it was fantastic. And so building that into a company is beyond profound, you know, and it's exemplary, and I'm so impressed by it, really.
Well, thank you, and we don't get an A on it, to be perfectly honest with you. You know, we are far from a perfect company, but I think the thing that we have to remember is that we all have to set the bar high, and when we set a high bar and we aim to hit it every day, but maybe fail some days, that's okay, because it's better to have that high bar than to have no bar at all. And that's what we've done here. We've just raised the bar and said, let's give it our best. We know we're going to fail. When we fail, let's own it. Let's admit it. Let's own it. Let's apologize when we need to as leaders. And then let's move on. You know, there's a new day tomorrow. Let's make it better tomorrow.
So what is if you were to sort of summarize, what is the central message of Values Inc., your new book? What is it you want people to sort of really walk away getting?
The central message is that it needs to be a movement, and it starts with each and every one of us. So even if you don't run an organization, you have got to get clarity about your personal values and what are your accountability statements. And I find when people are clear about that personally, life is so much better for them. Not easy, but so much better. So it starts with each and every one of us. We need to be responsible for owning it, not pointing the finger at other people when things aren't going right, but starting right here. And then once we do that, bring it into our organizations, and then hold ourselves and our team members accountable, and then share it with others, help other people learn how this really can make an impact, not only in our lives and our businesses, but in the world. And this world needs this kind of a movement, right? In all areas, from what you and I do to what the government's doing. We need to get back to being values-guided leaders.
The interesting thing, and you've mentioned it several times in this conversation, when I go and work with a company, I always love to say right at the beginning, I say, listen, I'm here to help you with the purpose of your organization, but we've not done our job if it doesn't transform your marriage and your friendships and the way you are with your children and your life. Right. And that's very much what you're about, right?
Benefits every relationship you're in, whether it's home, school, work, church, wherever you might be.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about what I love about what you're saying with values is that it's not about business. It's about who you are and how you operate as a human, and how you operate with other humans, and how they are with you and with customers and all the rest of it. So really, as you talk about it, and as you know, from our previous conversations and from your book, if we strip out anything that is a business language, this is a personal growth message as much as it is anything else, isn't it?
It is. And it's about keeping the values front and center. What is your system, even if it's individually, for keeping those values front and center? I tell a story about my nephew who ended up getting this amazing tattoo on his bicep, and it says peace and plenty. But what that tattoo represents is his grandfather, my father, the founder of our company's belief system, because my dad signed every letter, peace and plenty. And what that meant is we all should have peace. We should have clarity of values, and that will give us peace. And then we have plenty, we have abundance to share with others. When we are at peace and doing what we know we need to be doing and holding ourselves accountable to that, we have so much to offer others. So my nephew, Chris, actually literally tattooed that on his biceps so that when he's getting ready for work in the morning and shaving, he's reminded of his values. When he's getting dressed, he's reminded of his values. So I'm not suggesting that your viewers start tattooing themselves with their values, but they need to find a system for keeping those values front and center in their lives, because it will help them with their decision making.
Well, you just said, you just said the word plenty. Mm-hmm. How does leading leading with values, how do you see that as creating wealth?
Creates wealth first in relationships. And I think you and I are on the same page, and probably your viewers too, they wouldn't be watching your program, is that it's all about relationships first. It's the way that we treat one another in this world, right? Treat everybody with respect and dignity. We don't have to agree with everybody, but we can treat everybody with respect and dignity. And when we do that, guess what? In business, you create wealthy relationships. Those wealthy relationships convert into referrals. Mm-hmm. Your business, just like mine, probably survives off of referrals. And isn't it nice when you don't have to go out and do a lot of marketing because you have so many customers that come to you because of referrals? So that wealth is created. And then the financial, the dollars do show up. So when you're providing real value by treating people with your values, with respect and dignity, providing a quality product and service, guess what? The profits will always follow. And I am here to say, and in my book, it gives very clear statistics on companies who lead with their values. Their profitability is higher and more sustainable than those companies that do not lead with their values. It's proven.
Do you think values is evolutionary? Meaning, do you think that a person's values evolve as they get older, as they get clearer?
I do. They say that we're indoctrinated in our values as a child between the ages of 4 and 7. We learn our values primarily from our parents, grandparents. Yep. And as we grow, depending on who we're spending time with and where we're spending time, those values can, when I think about values, I think about moral and ethical values. There are other values too that are not moral and ethical. There's a lot of ways to value things that are not healthy. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, as time goes by, there's a lot of things that influence our values. So it really is important who you spend time with, who you're hanging out with, because they can either bring your values down to a level that's not where you want to be, or they can help build you up to a bigger level. My number one personal value, and this is not to push my faith on anybody in the viewing audience, but my number one personal value is my faith. It's right. The one thing that gives me the confidence to do what I do every single day, Dob. And if I didn't have the courage to say that out loud, then I'm not living up to my value. So I can't worry about what everybody else thinks about me. All I can do is do my best to treat others with respect and care and dignity. And if I do that, that's the best I can do. And they may or may not like me, but all I've done is the best that I can do.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't generally go into the faith conversation with the people I speak to. I have studied a lot of religious philosophies and a wide variety of religions. And one of my good friends, he's very Christian, and he says, "I can't stand Christians." I said, "What do you mean?" And he says, "Because for him is to walk in the footsteps of Christ." And he says, so when people are judging people for something that was in Deuteronomy, he said, if we believe in Jesus, we believe in Christ, he didn't reference Deuteronomy. He referenced love thy neighbor, right? So if thy neighbor is gay, because I don't have a problem with that, and it's just this, I think that there is religion, and this is why I'm bringing it up. There is religion and then there's faith. And what when I hear you talk in our previous conversations, this one, it doesn't mean you don't believe in your religion. Of course, what you believe, whatever you believe, that's fine. But I hear that you have faith in the values that holds in place for you. Am I misreading that? Okay.
No, you're reading it right. And it's that faith that gives me the courage to hold myself accountable too.
Right.
And I have certain habits and practices just like anybody does. And, one of my practices is I attend Mass as often as possible. I try to go to Mass daily because that's what works for me, Dob. It gives me a place to be. It's a classroom of silence, really. It's a place to go and get quiet and keep my life in perspective. That, yes, there's a lot going on today and a lot of it's noise, But what's the most important thing? It all comes back to loving our neighbor. That's what it all comes back to. It all comes back to my job today is to love my neighbor. Whoever it is I run across on the street, in this office, tonight when I get home.
Yeah.
My job is to love them and try my best not to judge. And it's a hard thing. It goes back to that value of never saying anything about anyone. We would not say, it's a human nature sometimes to judge, and that's tough. It's difficult. I really try not to judge, but I know I do. And it's not that I mean to, but I know I do. And so it's bringing myself back every day to that place of, who am I supposed to be today? I'm supposed to be somebody who's loving others and embracing them. We did a walk for the homeless on Sunday morning. And you know what? This young man named Robert, he's not young, he's probably in his 50s, a veteran who's chronically homeless, gave me some great advice yesterday. Here's a man on the street pushing his basket. He's got enough cans to get $5, so he's earning his way, but can't stay in the shelters because he's got some issues. He says, I can't be in a shelter in a closed place. But he gave me some great advice yesterday. It was actually, he prayed for me yesterday. Who am I to judge Robert?
Right.
I was there to love Robert. I got a picture with him too. I said, Robert, can I get a picture with you? Because what a guy, what a great man.
Yeah, I used to have an office out of the city somewhere else. And one of my clients, very wealthy, successful business person from Vancouver, came to my office. And about 3 miles down the highway of where I lived off, where my office was just off, they started to do some renovations, and all the working girls that worked on the streets there decided to move, and they moved to the corner of the street where my office was.
Oh no.
Not good for business. And this very high level client of mine, in his top level Mercedes, arrived a little bit early, parked, waited, and one of these girls got in his car. And he's a non-smoker, and she smelled of cigarettes, and he's like, and she's trying to chat him up, and she's trying to do all these things. And she said something to him, no sexual or anything, but she just said something to him. And he came to my office, he was completely shaken and freaked out. And I said, she was your Buddha. And he goes, what do you mean? She was there to show you, teach you something. What was it? And we spent 20 minutes for him to get, how are you judging people? What have you decided about somebody because of the way they look? That's not necessarily true, as you just spoke about with Robert. And we so easily do this. We so easily do this. We write people off as not having value because they don't have the life we have. They don't have the clothing we have. They don't live in the place we live. Instead of understanding the humanity, and honestly, Dina, this is why I was looking at our conversation and excited to do it, because it's one of the things I really love about you is that, I get that you're a decent human being. And I'm sorry to say that oftentimes we see, particularly in big business, we see the antithesis of that. It's like, oh my God, like so much of that values is missing.
Yeah, they have the wrong values. That's power and money and things that, it's nothing wrong with having money. It's what you do with it.
Nothing wrong with having power. It's what you do with it.
But we had a fantastic keynote speaker at our reunion this past weekend. And the one thing that told me the most about her was the way she treated the team behind the stage. All the people doing audio and visual, she greeted every one of them, Dov. So when I came on stage to thank her, I said I was a fan before she ever got on stage, because you know what? I saw how she treated the people behind the scenes. And I've seen other people who treat the people behind the scenes as dirt. And they get on stage and they're all charismatic and look wonderful and are believable. But what really tells you about a person is the way they treat people when nobody's looking.
My wife was asked recently, she said, what was it you fell in love with about Dov? And she said, his kindness. And somebody said, well, how do you know? Was he just very kind to you? And she goes, oh no. I watched him with his friends, and I watched him in stores, and I watched him with a waitress. That's how I knew he was kind. She goes, because he doesn't look kind. He looks like he's tough. She goes, but I watched him. Yeah, but it's, that's what happens when you fall on your head from 120 feet. That's what happens when you land on a rock, when you fall off a mountain. It's what happens when you were a boxer and a martial artist. My face shows that that world, but it's not where my heart is.
Right.
And it's that is, you know, in my industry and as a speaker, I see that so often. What looks like on stage is not what I see from the person. And it happens in big business. We see such poor representations, and it sours people. And when you come at it from a place of values, I just love what you're doing. It's very important.
Well, it's a team effort. You know, it's a whole organization that's
Yeah, you
making
can't
this
do it
work.
alone. You're
I'm
absolutely
just
right.
a little part of it.
Yeah, but an important part. You're a catalyst. I want to ask you something. Tell me something that people see you doing, and they probably think you do it with great ease, but it's something you either didn't do with ease, or it's not particularly easy for you, but you do it anyway, and you do it probably so often that people look at it and go, "Yeah, that's easy for Dina."
It's probably speaking. So I'm on the stage a lot, and I always get nervous, and I say a lot of prayers before I ever go out on that stage. And I think people think it's so natural, it's so easy. You just do it, Dina. You don't have to practice. And in fact, my nephew, who happens to work here at Dwyer Group, his leader is challenging him to do more public speaking. And he says, "Oh, but Aunt Dina, I hate it." He goes, "I'm so bad at it." He goes, "Unless I'm talking about something I really care about." I said, "DJ, you can do it, even things that maybe you don't care as much about, but you've got to practice." And I told him how many hours I put into preparing for a speech, especially when I'm writing a brand new speech, the hours I put in per minute of the speech, and he couldn't believe it. He said, "I had no idea you had to practice like that." I said, "I drive people crazy. Like my mother, would you listen to my speech again?" She's like, "Okay." She's going to sleep, having to listen again. And I said, I get in front of the mirror and I practice in front of the mirror. And I hate to do that. I hate to see myself, but I've got to do it because I owe it to the audience. So I think that might be the one thing that maybe looks very natural for people that are viewing, but I still have to really give it everything I've got.
And I think that, you know, I like this question because I think it helps people to understand that anybody who does anything that looks easy has put a lot of work into it. You know, I've been speaking for 34 years. I still need a diaper before I go on stage.
I haven't gone that far, and I hope I don't. But
well, not literally, but it feels that way. And for every hour on stage, there's about 80 hours of prep. And I'm not talking about my past experiences and all the other stuff, which is years and years and years. But like you said, for a new presentation, there's about 80 hours for 1 hour. And I need to do that 1 hour several times as well. So,
that's right.
You know, people
Very
have no
consistent
idea.
with my practice, very consistent.
Yeah, it's amazing because, again, people go, "Oh, it's so easy for you." So as we're coming towards the end of this show, I want to ask you, what is a guilty pleasure for Dina? You talked about mass, you've talked about praying, you've talked about values, all this good stuff. But what's a guilty pleasure?
Bread and chocolate. And I do like dark chocolate, so I would say that is something that's supposed to be healthy in moderation. But bread, oh my goodness, I could actually live off of bread, water, and dark chocolate.
How dark is dark?
I don't like the 90%. In fact, I've got 90% still sitting in my pantry at home, and I don't want to touch it because it's just a little bit too bitter. 70% is pretty good.
Okay. Is there a particular brand, or it doesn't matter?
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Dark chocolate. Serious about this? It's okay. Yeah. It's whatever.
It's whatever.
That's fabulous. Please tell, give our viewers, our listeners, what would be the one practical piece of advice that you would want our viewers, our listeners to know so they could take this and put it in action? What would be something they could do in the next, preferably 24 hours?
Oh, they could easily download the Create Your Culture Workbook at DinaDwyer-Owens.com and get started on the first two steps. Number one, get clarity of your values. They could do that tonight. They could sit down tonight, even with their family. If again, they're just doing it for themselves personally, not for their business, they could do that tonight. And then the next step again would be to create the accountability statements. What are the things that I'm going to do? And I give them plenty of examples that I'm going to do that's going to say I am in fact living up to this value of respect or honesty or integrity, whatever it might be. 24 hours, you can have those two pieces done just for yourself. What are you waiting for? Get it done.
Exactly. That's really good. So What's something that nobody asks you that you wish they would? Because you do a lot of interviews.
I do. Most people don't ask me what my habits are. So what are some of your good habits? And one of my number one habits is to, when I wake up in the morning before I ever get out of bed, Dov, is I count my blessings. We all have something to be grateful for. And I find it's the best way to wake up in the morning, thinking about all those things we have to be grateful for, even though we might have a big challenging day ahead of us. It starts your day on a positive light. So that's one of my habits. Exercise is also another great habit that I have. I talked about daily mass, and that's a habit that really feeds me spiritually. But exercise also, like this evening, actually, I'll exercise sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the evening. But this evening at about an hour, I'll be going hiking with some of the team members from the office here. We've got this beautiful park, Cameron Park, right next to our office. And it's drizzling a little bit, but we'll go for probably hour and a half hike and have a great time. So that also, you know the benefits of exercise. So that's another great habit.
Fabulous. Well, thank you for sharing all that you've shared. It's been an absolute joy and a pleasure being here. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with all of us.
Thank you for having me, Doc.
Would you please tell our viewers, our listeners again, where they can find out more about you, about your books, about the downloads, about all the wonderful resources that you offer?
Sure. Simply go to Dina, Dwyer-Owens.com. So it's DINA, Owens with an S.com. And you can get the free Create Your Culture download. Books are available, and of course in bulk. Super. I didn't write the book to make a profit. I wrote them to make a difference. So they're available at a really inexpensive cost. If you're interested in a franchise, we're looking for great people to fill in what we call the white space, so that our Get Neighborly program is completely filled out. So customers everywhere have access to all of our brands. So that's also available on my website, DinaDwyer-Owens.com.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. It's been a true joy and a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you'll stay with us to the end. And we'll make sure that we post, of course, all of those links on the show notes. And remember, you can now chat about this show or any of our shows with other listeners by simply going to the Facebook page, and it's the Dov Baron Leadership and Loyalty Show. Remember, the research consistently shows that one of the biggest challenges facing even the most successful companies can be somewhat counterintuitive, and that these fast-growing companies often hit a point where they realize that they are spending a fortune attracting, training, and developing talent, only to have them leave at an alarming rate. If you're sick of investing in training and developing your talent only to have them leave before you get your ROI, then come talk to us at fullmontyleadership.com, where we provide you with the essential leadership skills to rekindle and amplify the hidden loyalty assets inside of your organization by tapping into purpose. fullmontyleadership.com, providing you with the concrete soft skills to get you and your organization to the top and keep you there. Why? Because you can't outsource authenticity. And remember to stop by the Matrix, matrix.fullmontyleadership.com. You don't need www, just matrix.fullmontyleadership.com, and get your authentic leadership matrix self-assessment tool. It's valued at $197. You get it absolutely free, and it's going to allow you to assess yourself in the 5 areas of leadership. And remember, you can also find us on Google Play, and Alexa, just say, play Dov Baron Podcast. Thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Till next time. Stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about what your true values are. Take the time to go download that assessment so that you can work through that worksheet and find out what your values are. Stay curious about what they really are and whether you're actually living in them. I'm Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness to reach the next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your life, in your business, and in your leadership impact. And I am out.